Protection with Blessings. Maṅgala Sutta. By Venerable Uttamo Thera. 29. Discussing the Dhamma on timely occasions. Practicing of meditation can be started from the 25th blessing of hearing the Dhamma on timely occasions. One of the factors for the realization of Dhamma is listening to Dhamma. Here the blessing is discussing the Dhamma, which has some differences from hearing Dhamma. But they are closely related. Without hearing Dhamma, we do not know practice and discuss Dhamma with others. Here both sides discuss what they know and do not know yet. In this way, we can part or share knowledge. It can increase one's knowledge and progress in practice. Why practicing meditation can be said, start from listening Dhamma on timely occasions. According to the Buddha, Dhammasavana, listening of Dhamma had 5 factors. 1. Listening with attention. 2. Taking notes or remembering them. 3. Reflecting on them. 4. Understanding of them. 5. After understanding of them and put it into practice, i.e., sila, samadhi and panna. Discussing of Dhamma also has the 5 benefits. These are: 1. Hearing things never heard before. 2. Have clear knowledge. 3. Overcoming doubts. 4. Have right views. 5. One's mind grows serene. There is no doubt that discussion or dialogue on Dhamma has great benefits. There were many evidences and stories in the suttas. Even non-Buddhists, i.e., outsiders, had great benefits and their lives were changed. Before they had wrong views and after dialogue had the right views and knew how to live their lives. Some even became monks and realized the Dhamma. Dialogue between faiths is also very important. Especially nowadays, this is more urgently needed. The main goal of all faiths is peace, harmony and happiness. The basic foundation is nearly the same, i.e., morality, to become a good human being. Because of misunderstanding and misinterpretation, one's own and other faiths create problems and mistrust. There is also conceit, the superior syndrome. Because of this defilement, some people worship the same God, killing and harming other faiths. Today human morality is going down very quickly like a thermometer. Dialogue between faiths can help to solve the problem of moral degeneration. We can learn from each other and helping each other to solve social problems. In this respect, Buddha Dharma can offer a lot. Dialogue between world leaders, politicians, are also very important for the stability of their countries and the world. Out of greed and selfishness, some leaders and politicians only make their countries great and not a concern for others. They have ill will and capitalist syndrome of growth, profits and competition. Greedy, ill will, envy, avarice, exploitation, etc. will never bring harmony, peace and happiness to one's own country and the world. Look at today's world situations and we know the outcomes and conditions of unwholesome Dharma. A human cannot solve the worldly problems with confrontation and competition. Because greed, ill will, delusion are the root of all suffering. Why should politicians and economists destroy themselves and the world just for sensual pleasures? The price for sensual pleasure is far greater than a momentary, fleeting pleasure. They all have to pay for their evil deeds in hell, as animals and ghosts. These are inexpressible sufferings just for sensual pleasures. Dharma discussion and dialogue are mostly practicing by elderly Buddhists. It has a long tradition by Burmese Buddhists who have some Abhidhamma knowledge. They are arguing on some Abhidhamma doctrines. Ta Pai Khan Sayadaw said that youth and young people also should practice it. He said we should arrange Dharma discussion for them. We can say this is a kind of Dharma education. It was like the Chinese culture and moral standards. Some Chinese dynasties followed them were creating prosperity and lasting longer. All the worldly problems and sufferings can be related to not knowing of the Buddha Dharma and not practicing it. There was no one understanding and penetrating the human mind and its nature better than or more complete than the Buddha. The suttas were testified this point. For 45 years he was wandering and staying on the earth to teach every kind and type of human beings. Sometimes heavenly beings came down to ask him questions to clear about their doubts. Arranged Dharma discussing among the youth can have great benefits for them. With the knowledge of Dharma, which represents intelligence and wisdom, they will know what is right and wrong, beneficial and not beneficial, proper and not proper, etc. They can also have the power of how to deal and solve the problems and difficulties in their life. Dharma discussing is one of the causes of progress in wisdom. We can see this important point in some suttas. In Dharma, dialogue and discussing should not make arguments and criticisms. Instead, it should be exchanged with knowledge and learned from each other. Regarding listen to Dharma talks, there are some differences. In listening to Dharma, some of them we already know. It is also we cannot know more than in the talks if we have doubts and cannot solve the problems. Therefore, it is very important to have questions and answers sections after the talks. This practice is quite common in the West, but in Burma does not has this kind of tradition. So, Burmese teachers should allow Dharma listeners to enrich their knowledge and solve their doubts. Here I want to present the benefit of Dharma discussion or dialogue from a sutta. Discourse on Khimaka, Khimaka Sutta. Several older monks were dwelling at Kosambi in Gosita's park. Now on that occasion, Ven. Khimaka was living at Jujube Tree Park, sick and gravely ill. He was at that time an anagami, had the third stage of enlightenment. In an evening these monks emerged from their practice and asked Ven. Dasaka, maybe the youngest monk, to visit Ven. Khimaka and asked him about his illness. Ven. Khimaka told Ven. Dasaka that his illness was not better and strong painful feeling, Vedana, increased. And then, Ven. Dasaka returned and reported the news to the older monks. The older monks for the second time sent back Ven. Dasaka to ask Ven. Khimaka again. There were the 5 aggregates, khandhas, i.e., form, feeling, perception, volitional formation and consciousness. These were subjected to clinging. They wanted to ask Ven. Khimaka was, did he regard anything as self, or as belonging to self among these 5 aggregates subject to clinging? Ven. Khimaka's answer was, he did not regard anything as self or as belonging to self among these 5 aggregates. And then, Ven. Dasaka returned and reported the answer. The older monks for the third time sent back Ven. Dasaka to ask Ven. Khimaka again. If he was not clinging to any of the 5 aggregates as self or belonging to self, then he was an arahant, one whose taints, asavas, were destroyed. Ven. Khimaka answered that even though he did not take any of the 5 aggregates as self or belonging to self, he was not an arahant yet, one whose taints were destroyed. But the notion of I am had not yet vanished in him about the 5 aggregates. And he did not regard anything among him as, this I am. According to Mogik Sayadaw, then Khimaka was only an anagami. He did not take each of the aggregates as self or belonging to self. But he had not yet eradicated ignorance, avidya, which sustained a residual conceit and desire, I am, about the 5 aggregates. And then, Dasaka returned and reported the answer. The older monks, after they heard the answer, still not clear what Khimaka had said before. So, they sent back Dasaka to ask for the 4th time. Did he speak of form, Rupakhanda, as, I am, or apart from form, as, I am? The other aggregates also in the same manner. Therefore, Dasaka returned and asked the question. Then, Khimaka was leaning on his staff, and with Dasaka went to see the elders. He explained to the elders that he did not take form as, I am, or apart from the form as, I am. The other aggregates also in the same way. But he still held the whole 5 aggregates as, I am, instead of each of them as, I am. He gave a simile for this point. There were the scents of blue, red and white lotus. Did the scents belong to petals, or the stalks, or the pistils? The right answer was the scent belonged to the flower. In the same way, he did not take any of the 5 khandhas as, I am, but to the whole 5 aggregates as, I am. He continued to explain to them. Even though a noble disciple had abandoned the 5 lower fetters, i.e., anagaman, fetters are called samyojana. There are 10 fetters. 1. Identity view. 2. Doubt. 3. The distorted grasp of rules and vows. 4. Sensual desire. 5. Ill will. 6. Lust for form. 7. Lust for formless. 8. Conceit. 9. Restlessness. 10. Ignorance. Note: the 3rd fetter of the distorted grasp of rules and vows is very important for true Buddhists to transcend dukkha sakka. If not, they can be fallen into extreme view of bhavatana craving for becoming, which is samadaya sakka. Kilesa mara comes in as impostor pretends to be true compassion and wisdom which deviate from the middle way, such as the doctrine of enlightened bodhisattva view. As an anagami, Khimaka had eradicated the first 5 fetters. But he still had relation to the 5 aggregates subjected to clinging. It lingered in him as a residual conceit, I am, a desire, I am, an underlying tendency, I am, that had not yet been uprooted. So, the yogi had dwelt to contemplate the rise and fall in the 5 aggregates subjected to clinging, and the residual conceit and the underlying tendency, I am, came to be uprooted. Then, Khimaka explained it with a simile. A cloth had become soiled and stained, and gave it to a laundryman. He would scour it evenly with cleaning salt, lye, or cow dung, and then rinsed it in clean water. Even though the cloth became pure and clean, still had the residual smell of cleaning salt, lye, or cow dung. So, had to put it in a sweet-scented casket, and all the residual smell of salt, lye or cow dung had vanished. In the end, Khimaka and all the 60 monks became arahants. Because at the same time of discussing Dhamma, they contemplated their khandhas. Some points were interesting to contemplate. According to Mogik Sayadaw, the first time Dasaka went to see Khimaka, all of the elders were worldlings. After the second time, they were once returners, Sakadagamans, because each time they got the answers from Ven Kimaka and practiced accordingly. After the third time, they did not make very clear about Ven Kimaka's answer. Therefore, in the fourth time, he went to them and explained Dhamma. In the end, all of them finished the practice. In his commentary on the Maṅgala Sutta, Tarpai Gan Sayadaw gave the Mahagasingha Sutta, the great Gosinga Wood discourse for the Dhamma discussing. From Majjhima Nikaya, MN.32 Mahagasingha Suttam. Mahagasingha Sutta. At one time, the Buddha and some of his chief and great disciples stayed in the Gosinga Sal wood. Then in an evening, Ven Mahamoggallana, Mahakassapa, Anuruddha, Ravata and Ananda went together to Ven Sariputta for his talk. After they arrived there, instead of giving his Dhamma talk, first he asked Ven Ananda the following question. The Gosinga forest was beautiful and peaceful at night. The sal trees were in full blooms. The fragrant scent of the flowers diffused in the night. The question was what kind of monk could grace the Gosinga forest. Each of the monks following gave or offered their views accordingly to their outstanding or foremost qualities. Ven Ananda's answer. In this matter, a monk who had heard a great them fluently reflected on them and penetratingly comprehended them with wisdom. That monk taught people, monks, nuns, laymen and lay women, for the uprooting of latent defilement, kilesa. Such a monk could grace the Gosinga Sal wood. Ven Ravata's answer, Sariputta's youngest brother. In this matter, a monk who delighted in solitary seclusion enjoyed seclusion, constantly strived for tranquility, endowed with insight and devoted to practice in secluded places. Such a monk could grace the Gosinga Sal forest. Ven Anuruddha's answer. In this matter, a monk who could survey 1,000 world systems, celestial or divine eye, which was extremely clear, far more surpassed than the telescopes of the scientists. Such a monk could grace the Gosinga Sal forest. Ven Mahakassapa's answer. He was older than the Buddha in age. Because of his background before ordained and austere practices in the holy life, the Buddha took him very highly and praised him a lot. He was the only monk who the Buddha exchanged robes with him. After the Buddha passed away, he preserved his Dhamma for original and pure from the contamination. Today Buddhists owed him a lot for his effort. In this matter, a monk who practiced the austerity of forest dwelling and praised the virtues of it, taking only food received on the alms round and praised the virtues of it, wearing discarded pieces of cloth and praised the virtues of it, keeping only 3 robes for wear and praised the virtues of it, who was of few desire and praised the virtues of having only few desire, who was contented and praised the virtues of contentment, who sought seclusion, stayed aloof from people, strived energetically in practice, completely endowed with morality, concentration and wisdom, attained liberation and endowed with the reflective knowledge of that liberation. Such a monk could grace the Gosinga Sal wood. Ven Mahamoggallana's answer. In this matter, 2 monks were discussing the higher Dhamma. Each asked the other question and each answered questions put by the other without difficulty, e.g., Dhamma discussions between Ven Sariputta and Ven Mahakotita. Such a monk could grace the Gosinga Sal forest. After he had given his answer and Ven Mahamoggallana asked Ven Sariputta of his view on this matter. Ven Sariputta's answer. In this case, a monk who had mastery over his mind, that whatever attainment, there are two attainments, i.e., absorptions, jhanas and fruition states, phalas, he wished to enter for at any time and he could do it quite easily. Such a monk could grace the Gosinga Sal wood. All of them had different answers, but the taste of Dharma was only one. They answered them from their characters and preferences. They wanted to know how the Buddha responded to them. So, they went to see the Blessed One. The Buddha said that all of them answered properly and praised them. All answers were well spoken and justified. And then, the Buddha gave his view on this matter. The Buddha's answer. In this case, the monk returned from the round of alms food and had finished his alms meal. And then, sat down with crossed legs to practice mindfulness in meditation, Satipatthana Bhavana, with the determination that he would not get up from sitting until his mind was freed from the clinging of defilement, kilesa. This monk could grace the Gosinga Sal forest. All these kinds of monks mentioned in this sutta still exist into this day. Thanks to the monks who preserved the Dharma and practices and supported by the laity in Buddhist countries such as Burma and Thailand. Burma continues to produce monks like Ven Ananda who can recite the Tipitaka by heart. Thai forest traditions still produce monks like Ven Mahakassapa. Burma continues to produce excellent scholars, monks and meditation teachers. So, monks and laity alike can learn the Dharma and practices, and with many meditations, centers continue to arise. These meditation centers give the chances for anyone who wants to practice to end dukkha in this life, which the Buddha emphasized in his answer. Even we can say all the human problems and sufferings come from not knowing the Dharma and not practicing it. So, for every human being nothing is more important than study and practice the Dharma. Listening and discussing of Dharma on timely occasions are prerequisites for it. So, the Buddha said that discussing the Dharma on timely occasions was the highest protection with a blessing.